Okay, we're going to get started with the proofs now. And I know everyone's intimidated by the proofs, but I think they'll go okay. We want to start out by looking at what is given. And let's get that on our diagram. So we got AB is parallel to DE, which I'm marking here. And we've got AB is congruent to DE, which I'm marking. And we've got BC is congruent to FE. That's all we really know from what is given. And we know we're trying to prove the triangle ABF, this triangle here, is congruent to triangle DEC, this triangle here. So the only thing that we know so far is that these two sides are congruent. So we're going to start off our proof. And remember, when we start a proof, we kind of got to think of where we might go with this. So I got two sides that are congruent, and I also have two lines that are parallel that I'm just going to extend. And I've got a transversal that's coming through here. This line BE is a transversal to those two parallel lines. So right away I start to see that I have two angles here that are part of those triangles that are congruent. Why? Because of alternate interior angles. So now I think I have a side, I have an angle, and if I had another side, I could prove congruency. And I think I'll be able to work something with this side BF and side CE to prove the rest of it. So let's get started. Remember, we're going to use our two-column proof. So I'm going to have a statement on one side and my reason on the other. And I'm going to start out by writing what's given. AB is parallel to DE. Why? Because it's given. AB is congruent to DE. Why? Because that's also given. And BC is congruent to FE. Why? Because that's given. Now, my second step, I'm going to go ahead with what I found or discussed earlier, that angle B must be congruent to angle E. Why? Because I have two parallel lines here and a transversal across them, so alternate interior angles of parallel lines are congruent. Okay? Now, I've got a side and an angle, and I said I think I can make something of this segment here, BF and CE, in order to use side angle side. It has to be BF and CE in any case, because that's the only way B and E are included angles, if these two sides are also congruent. So let me just pull that segment out. And this is B, C, F, E. And I've got one part of the one triangle, ABF, is right here. That's that side. And then CE is the side of the other triangle. And what I realize is that I've got two segments here that are congruent, but they are congruent parts of overlapping segments. And if you remember, when we studied overlapping segments, if two parts of two overlapping segments are congruent, then obviously the common side is congruent, or the common segment is congruent. So we can also say that BF would be congruent to CE. So that is the missing piece from my proof. And the reason, being overlapping segments. So I've got that third side that I was looking for earlier. So I can say that triangle ABF is congruent to triangle DEC. Why? Because of side, angle, side. So I've concluded my proof here. And what I would like to do is move on to the final proof and the last problem in our video for tonight. So in this particular problem, we've got a triangle here that we're told is isosceles with a base of AC. And it says D is the midpoint, and it wants us to prove the triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. Okay? So like I said, I like to start with what's given and drop a lot of that on, and then you can kind of see where you can go with it. So here, if this is an isosceles triangle, ABC, then I know that this side and this side must be congruent. I know that this angle and this angle must be congruent also. And then finally, they told me that D is the midpoint, so I know that this side is congruent to this side. So I see right away that using side, angle, side, I'm going to be able to prove these two triangles congruent. So I'm going to make my T-chart here where I put my statement and my reason, because I'm doing the two-column proof, right? Reason on one side. And I'm going to start with everything I know. I know that ABC is isosceles. And the base is AC. Why? That's given to me. I also know that D is the midpoint of AC. Why? Because that was given to me. Now, remember I said I also from there would be able to say that angle A is congruent to angle C. Why? Definition of an isosceles triangle. I also would be able to say that AB is congruent to BC. Why? Definition of isosceles triangle. And now I also can say that AD, this line here, is congruent to DC. Why? Because definition of a midpoint, right? Anytime you have a midpoint, you know the two segments are congruent because it bisects the larger segment AC. So now I've put in my proof everything I found that leads me to be able to say triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. Why? Because of side, angle, side. Alright, so that concludes our proof. Now, I want you guys to remember, and I put this on the bottom of your paper, you need to get a parent's signature to prove that you watched the videos tonight. So have your parents sign off on this paper in order to get credit for the homework assignment. Thanks, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.